This poor boy ended up becoming a mercenary for a very powerful family, but later on, he lost his friends to them, so he went and stole a legendary grimoire that even the family didn't know existed, only to end up hunted by them and dying. But too stubborn to kick the bucket, the grimoire gave him a little help, bringing him back in time to beg for alms again. The story begins with Ivern flying in the sky, while someone thinks that it was by watching him and how he flew freely in the sky that they decided to abandon the grand magical house of Declan and retire as a mercenary. However, things weren't that easy, as currently this same man is being chased, or at least he was supposed to be, because he's already mastered the extra. He seriously asks, since when does he hide his abilities? For this is not a power that a mere mercenary should possess. But our pro is confident. He just smiles at him, thinking he's very naive, and soon asks if that's a grimoire. The extra replies that yes, because why would they come after a hunting mercenary like him without any apparent reason? But our boy says if the trash from the House of Declan is like him, they would certainly come in droves. But without dragging it out too much, he wants to know how to use it. Only the extra doesn't know, and from what he can see, that's true. For if the greedy Declans knew how to use it, he wouldn't be buried in that basement. And even not knowing how to use it, they still pursued him, which already says that it's worth a lot. Thus, the extra tells him to hand over the grimoire, as he will plead for mercy to his leader, and maybe he can become a mercenary again. But our brother just smiles and asks what kind of power the mercenary manager has to do something like that. And then he lifts the man in the air with his magic and with a cold look asks, "What are your last words?" But before he can conclude the matter, a new character appears on the scene, a man surrounded by dark energy, slowly walking towards our boy. He introduces himself as Farenvo Declan, the legendary head of the most powerful magical family in the East, which surprises our hero. And Farron tells him that if it's not too much trouble, he would like him to hand over the grimoire and maybe they can talk afterwards. However, our hero, named Esther, thinks that he served the Declan family for decades but has never seen the mythical Farron in person, the most feared and respected sorcerer in the history of the Declans. But our protagonist, on the other hand, observes closely and thinks what kind of guy he is. But the Aster I saw in his request shows no interest and still plays the fool, saying he was getting annoyed and asking if he really thinks he can steal something he earned with so much effort. But the Farron just laughs, a laugh heavy with arrogance, and our adolescent feels the crushing weight surrounding him. It's an utterly absurd force, so intense that he regrets having said that before. Realizing his stubbornness, the Fair changes his approach and orders the hero to hand over the book and return to serving the Deca family, promising that all his crimes will be forgiven. He acknowledges his combat skills and admits he regrets not having noticed the absurd talent he had. He finds it impressive that a piece of trash from the gray area, who only learned the lousy techniques that mercenaries use, still has this level of skill. And with the support of the Declan house, he wonders how far this boy could go. He concludes by saying that by returning to his side, he could soar under the family's protection, and finishes that everyone must unite and make history together. Esther says all right, he can accept, but only if Farhan gives him the position of family leader. A clearly blatant provocation, leaving Farhan quite irritated. Esther turns to him and asks if he didn't see how many people died for this, already using his power, and concluding that extra leaves Farhan completely furious. He tells our boy that this kind of challenge will cost dearly, but Austin doesn't care at all and just says it's worth the risk, already charging at him and calling him out for a duel. Obviously, Farhan accepts without hesitation, already creating a shield with little effort, saying he will grant him a bit of respect. Austin, very confident, just says he doesn't know whether something is small or large unless he measures it. Meanwhile, the family leader says that fine, it seems he will have to put a leash on him now, so he activates his magic already with our boy, showing no concern and with little effort greatly surprising our hero. But quickly he manages to dodge and thinks that this is the power of the Declan leader. There is not a single opening. Farhan asks him if he didn't say he needed to measure to know, and that there are things he doesn't even need to measure to know. A gigantic magic circle appears in front of our hero, and Farhan states that now he will learn the difference between the two, causing an immense explosion. And as the smoke begins to dissipate, Farhan says he didn't kill him, just left him a bit hurt, and asks if he now wants to negotiate. Even injured, our hero stands tall and asks if I would take him back if he decided to be a little puppy again, but quickly answers his own question, saying that of course I wouldn't. And with his face covered in blood, he shouts that he is tired of living off dog food. Then a lightning bolt erupts around him as he explodes with rage, declaring that no one in their right mind would accept him living chained up like an ornament in a grand house. But Farron calls him a fool and begins to make the entire sky tremble, with purple lightning taking over the air. At that moment, the hero understands why he had looked up at the sky and seen that pasture earlier. He finally realizes what he desires, which is his own freedom, and even with the devastating attack approaching, he does not bow. Farron watches this with a certain respect and admits he thought the blow would kill him, asking if he now feels the difference in power, but our boy remains standing, acknowledging the overwhelming strength of the enemy. Farron relaxes and says that now they can have a proper conversation, but what comes next leaves Aster completely astonished, as Farron offers him the position of chief of one of the affiliated families of the Declan, the Bogshan family. This leaves Aster utterly surprised, and he begins to think about the Bogshan family. Remember, the Declan family, the most powerful clan in the Eastern continent, is strong enough to challenge the throne, and they want him to swear loyalty to them as one of their vassal families. And this West says that this was his goal, taking the grimoire out of the space. While Farron says he underestimates his worth, he says he wants him and the grimoire while the two are fighting, and our boy holds on to the grimoire. He offers the grimoire. Farron says great, he made the right choice, and that absolved him of all his crimes, as he grabs the grimoire. But to his shock, our boy says that all the rest is the glory of becoming part of something he certainly doesn't want, already burning the grimoire in front of him, leaving the leader completely outraged, asking what he is doing, while our hero just smiles and asks what he thinks. He said he wanted him to give it to him, but didn't say what he wanted entirely, and Farron, very pissed off, says he will not die a painless death, but our boy just tells him to shut up, as he never did this for money. If the mercenary doesn't even pay that well, then why did he hold on to it? Because it was tied to money, and he asks if he has ever heard of mercenaries devoured by the young masters of the Declan family, which greatly surprises the family leader, as he begins to recall the forbidden magic. And our boy says yes, that damned one devoured his friends and the Declans covered it all up, so he would ask if it was for revenge. But our boy, once again, smiles and asks why he would do that, as he knows very well that the life of a mercenary isn't worth much, just like that of his friends. He only wanted to do what they wanted, but for that, he needed a lot of money, and after that, he finally decided to retire, but not return to that kennel. So the Farron turns to him and tells him to consider these last words and constellation of fingers, blue and dry flames, directed at our boy, while the Farron says that this glorious blue flame of the Declan family is a flame that never goes out, and he must burn in regret for every choice he made with every fiber of his being. But we want to water our eyes, and I ask, what do you mean regret? And just tell him to go to hell, thinking that if this is his last option, you, Declan's dog, he'd rather go back to the gray area, and if he can't even do that, dying is also the best option. Thus, burning by the blue flame, he starts to laugh, a very devilish laugh, as he realizes he has never felt so free. It's a pity he can't escape alive, but in the end, he has no regrets, and if he were born again, he would find freedom and definitely take revenge on them. Just at that moment, to Wester's surprise, a magic activated called the Winds Converge, and all that blue flame is completely dispelled, surprising our boy. And looking at this, he doesn't understand what happened and wonders, what the hell is this? When poking the Farron just from the back, as far as he can see, time stopped and he is very shocked, looking side to side. But at that moment, he notices the grimoire still burning in his hand. Just then, the grimoire starts to fly and several magical circles appear on his heart, while he wonders what these symbols are and what the hell is happening. Shortly after this, he finds himself in another place, still not understanding how the hell he survived, but he realizes something is wrong. He feels that the environment seems familiar, as if he has returned to the gray area. Thus, he realizes that the memory comes back with force. He is really back in the gray area, the same place he fought to survive before becoming a mercenary. But he thinks there's no way he really went back in time. And now by a lake, he starts to look at himself and realizes that his body is younger, but the mark is still there, those magical circles in flames. And seeing this, He concludes that the grimoire must have done this and would have made him go personally fetch that book. This already proves its importance, and thinking about it, going back to the past can be a good thing because it's basically a new chance, and in the end, it was worth it. He thinks that this is too real to seem like a dream, so he doubts that it is one. And was it pain from the sewers? It's too real to be a dream. Thinking about this, he gets quite excited about the new opportunity to achieve success at any cost. He starts to remember that he had a dream from the past, which was also his friend's dream. This was one of the reasons he decided to retire. Remembering the conversation he had with his friend in the past, he recalls that man telling him that they were born as beggars in the gray area and had nothing, no clothes, no food, and not even an education. He asks which of these he thinks was the worst. Austin says it was hunger, but his friend says that if it were just hunger, they wouldn't be there now. He asks what he thinks led to this shitty life they have, and Austin says he's fine with it actually, but his friend gets irritated and says that the reason their lives went down the drain is precisely that. Austin interrupts, saying he already mentioned he's fine with it. However, his friend gets even angrier, staring at him with a lot of rage, and the star apologizes and tells him to continue. His friend explains that not having an education was the worst, and if he had studied, they wouldn't be enslaved by those damn nobles. He says he would like to build a library where anyone could read for free, and our boy, inspired, dreams even bigger. He wanted to build a gigantic tower full of books, and place the secret manual of the Declan family right at the entrance of the first floor. Anyone, whether a beggar or a butcher, could learn the techniques of the family that enslaved him. Just imagining this makes him euphoric. The only problem would be getting the books, but he would leave that for his future self to solve, because deep down, his true objective was quite simple: to spread the secrets of the Declan family until the TV completely crumbled. But his moment of reflection ends brutally, receiving a kick to the face. A boy appears, completely furious, yelling at him for not staying where he was told. He starts to kick him mercilessly, while the star, surprised, lets his mercenary instincts take over and blocks one of the blows, but in fear, he calms that he took 7 kicks, and now it's time to return 10. So he prepares for the counterattack, but soon realizes his mistake upon hearing the sounds of bones breaking. And to his surprise, his hand was fractured, and the attacker called him crazy for hitting someone older, throwing him to the ground and continuing to beat him. Each blow hurts his body, but his heart truly breaks. Taking advantage of a gap, he reacts by pushing the boy, who falls into the sewer canal. Realizing the chance to escape, he doesn't think twice and starts running. The other boy gets up coughing and asks where that brat went, but Austin responds that he is not running away and that this is just a tactical retreat, promising himself to remember that face and the 57 blows he received from him, because after all, a mercenary never forgets. After distancing himself, he realizes he is in trouble, as his wrist hurts a lot and he can barely close it. Sitting down, completely defeated, he just sighs and realizes that with this weak body, the tower of his dreams will have to wait a long time, but the priority now is to fix and strengthen his own body. Just then, a childish voice interrupts him. A child with white hair appears, asking if he is hungry. The hero looks at him with suspicion and asks if he knows him. The boy shakes his head, but the star notices that, despite his tattered, expensive clothes, he deduces that he is the son of some kind of noble fallen from grace, basically a ticking time bomb ready to explode. The boy introduces himself as Damien, son of a woman named Bianca, while our hero feels he is hearing things he shouldn't hear. A bit impatient, he asks if the boy is retarded by any chance, but Demi, being innocent, suddenly replies that he doesn't have a mother. Our hero feels a brief pang in his chest, but masks it with a joke and says that now they will part ways. Thinking it's better not to involve this ticking time bomb with him, he decides to send him away before things get worse, but Demi simply stays in his place, staring at him. While Aster asks if he won't leave, Demi insists on following him. Our hero tries to refuse, thinking of slapping him, but the boy notices his injured wrist and asks if it hurts. Before our boy can respond, Demi places his hand on his wound, and a bright, soft light spreads over him, seeking instantly. The star is completely shocked, recognizing that magic immediately as the light of Korra, a secret technique of the Blender family, which fell into ruin thanks to the Declan family. His instincts scream that this is very dangerous, and he wonders why a Blender child would be right there in front of him at this time. He keeps repeating the name in his mind, The name is Damien, and at that moment, he remembers something crucial, a blander with mismatched eyes. His blood starts to run cold as he realizes the truth. That boy is no ordinary one. He is Damien Van Blander, the monster who does not die even when he is dead. While our boy feels the tremendous danger ahead of him, Damien merely crouches down and observes the ants, while Asta wonders if they are the same person. Our boy starts to remember the past and goes back to the time when he worked as a mercenary and was sent to the lands of the Blander family. He and his friends complained about how absurd it was that they had to do the work that should be the Blander family's own. During their conversation, one of them comments on the rumors of a monster that had been attacking in those lands, a being that had supposedly killed dozens of people. They asked what kind of monster that was, some kind of ogre or something like that, but Asta remembers that what he saw was nothing like that. What he witnessed was something much worse, a human tearing another apart, and that guy was Damien. He fought without stopping, with a mad laugh on his face, using healing magic to stay on his feet when he should have been dead. A true crazed butcher, a human who could not die even after his death. Then the memory ends and the scene returns to the present. In front of him stands Damien, now just an innocent boy observing ants on the ground. Asta is completely shocked, unable to reconcile the image of the brutal assassin with this frail child. He wonders why the heir of the Blander family, the only son of the Lord, would be living such a miserable life, but Damien interrupts, talking about food, and says that according to his mother, eating well prevents diseases, and that Asta is sick because he doesn't eat right. The boy even agrees with this idea, but finds his way of speaking very provocative. He wonders if Damien has money, and to Asta's surprise, the boy pulls out a heavy pouch and reveals several shining gold coins in front of him, asking if that's what he's talking about. Asta falls completely silent, but then smiles as a sign of approval and declares that, from that moment on, they are best friends, already putting his arm around him and telling Damien that friends share everything they have. Then he pulls Damien to look for an inn and something to eat, while Damien asks if our boy has anything to share. He replies with a smile that he has a friend, referring to Damien himself. Shortly after they take a bath, our boy feels rejuvenated. And then he starts observing Damien exploring the house above the restaurant, admiring the place. The boy mentions that it's his first time seeing a place like this since he's always slept on the street. In the middle of their conversation, he tells Aster that he doesn't have a father, and our boy, jokingly, just says that yes, he definitely has a father. They begin to argue about it, a really silly and childish argument, until our boy wonders why on earth he is competing over something like that and quickly asks about Damien's mother. The boy looks around before answering that she isn't there, and the reply leaves Aster very intrigued by what's going on in his head. He decides to dig deeper into the situation and asks how long Damien has been alone. The boy thinks about it for a moment and replies that ever since he ran away from home, he's slept 10 times. Aster starts analyzing the information, imagining that Damien is a runaway, and if he slept 10 times, that means 10 days. But then Damien explains that he can sleep twice a day, counting naps, and Aster starts calculating that he must have run away 3 days ago, or at most 4. But he gets very confused when the boy adds that this time he didn't take any naps. That's quite enough for our story to conclude that this boy is definitely a born lunatic. Still, he begins to outline his future plans and realizes that having Damon around could be a valuable opportunity. The boy could serve as a protector, in addition to being a direct link to the influential Blender family, something that could be very useful for him in his future dispute with the Declans. And of course, noble houses possess many books, and our boy needed to study. But before anything else, he had an urgent matter to resolve, his revenge and 57 strikes against that young man who assaulted him. So he informs Damien that he's going to lie down and asks not to be disturbed. The boy asks if he's going to do breathing exercises, and Aster confirms, asking Damien to do so later as well. Now, completely silent, the nostalgic one begins to enter his meditation, delving into memories of his past. He recalls how he depended on magical forms and how he overcame them. He stole techniques from various noble houses, almost dying numerous times in the past. He learned secret arts, but none of them were sufficient against Farron's power. But this time, however, he decided to master something completely different, the fundamental art of the Declan family, the legendary art of the Heavenly Spring, and he had memorized it for research purposes in his past life and now intends to use it fully. As soon as he begins to activate the technique, he feels an intense heat coursing through his body and discovers impurities in his mana cycles. He then resorts to a secret power, the Mana Rain, an elite technique used to purify lineage. Once the process is complete, he awakens and realizes that his magical cycles are cleansed of purified mana, perhaps even more than in his previous life. However, he still believes that defeating the Declan remains an almost impossible task. Nevertheless, now, his chances are a little better, and like a man who never gives up, he remains steadfast in his thoughts of revenge and freedom. The next day, Dami wakes up and is surprised by his brown hair, noticing that Austin secretly changed his hair color and also his clothes, so that the Blender family wouldn't recognize him. If a boy asks Austin what they will do now, the nostalgic one smiles and says it's time to break some heads. Now, in the race, that boy who had attacked Wester is so little sleepy after the nap that his eyes widen at the sight of our hero. He quickly asks where he has been and notices that his appearance looks clean. Additionally, he notices Dami, and from the clothes he sees, it seems they have money. Only to his shock, suddenly our boy delivers a powerful punch right to him, throwing him to the ground. Calmly, he says he remembers his face, and that's already enough. Then he starts with his count, 123 hits. Just at that moment, two boys from the area hear the commotion, and soon a large group forms around the two. Everyone is surprised to see what Austin is doing to that kid. Obviously, with a wide smile on his face, Austin surveys the crowd, recognizes some familiar faces, and decides to see how far he can go this time, along with his little friend Dami. Thus, basically, the intense fight begins. However, the star completely dominates, taking down each opponent with strikes infused with magical energy. As our boy showcases his skill, Demas watches, completely impressed with his new friend. Thus, the star decides to teach something important and says that in moments like this, it's a good idea to write down what one sees in a graceful and exciting way. Dami, very excited, says he is amazing. While asking, he understands why they say it's incredible, and Dami is thrilled watching that fight. Soon he approaches the first fallen youth, offering to heal the wounds, but Aster stops him, already grabbing him by the shirt and asking how many hits the guy took. But without waiting for the answer, he takes a piece of wood and delivers a hard smack on his backside, making the boy stutter, completely startled, unable to remember the exact number. But Aster doesn't care about anything and turns to Damer, saying that it's his turn now. With a big smile, Damer starts using his healing touch, but the injured young man begins to scream in pain, begging them to stop. But Aster is completely unyielding, stating that the bill has not been settled yet, and that exactly 20 more hits are needed. Thus, the kid starts calling him a demon, completely desperate. And after everything finally ends, one of the young men approaches our boy, tired but very respectful, greeting him, while Aster feels a bit of pride in that. He fulfilled his task and dished out 2,000 hits, 100 on each of them, and it was indeed an intense challenge. The boys, exhausted, ask for permission to leave, and Austin says yes, they can go now. But one of them comments that that guy was from their own house and asks if he wants them to leave anyway. However, Austin, pissed off, asks if he isn't asking too much and if he doesn't want to get hit again. The boys say no, that they are leaving, and start running as far away from there as possible. And while he thinks he suspects, he realizes that he's now homeless. But suddenly he feels a presence approaching, and the movement is quick and precise as if it were a professional mercenary. So he concludes that they are being chased and that this will be by the Blander family. However, with so little mana, he can't use spells, but still remembers who he is, a mercenary used to surviving critical situations. So he quickly concentrates all his energy, compressing it into a single attack, and realizes that he only has one chance. He figures this should be enough, and thus feels the pursuer drawing closer. When the pursuer finally appears, our boy already aims that skill at him, but is very surprised, realizing that the man was not the enemy, but rather a newly arrived elderly man. He starts to shout, kneeling in front of the young Master Damien, while Damien looks very frightened, recognizing Alfredo, and the old man starts to speak, saying he doesn't know how long he has been searching for him, and asks where he has been and what he has been doing. And this poor butler couldn't sleep because he was worried about the young master, while Damon tries to break free from him, telling him to get lost. But the old man says he won't let go until he returns to his family, and will only let go if Madari does. And he begins to ask Damon why he ran away from his family, and what the hell happened while our boy faces that situation completely pissed off. After calming down a bit, Alfredo grabs Damien and apologizes for the mess in front of him, introducing himself as Alfredo, the butler of the Blander family. He feels relieved to have finally found Damien, and the latter responds by saying he is Wester. If I send a message from Austin's connection, Damien and I invite him to visit the Blander residence. Our hero, for a moment, hesitates, knowing that nobles tend to despise commoners, but in the end, he accepts the invitation, seeing it as a great opportunity. After all, the Blander family controls access to the city of Rasen, where the Zenith Academy and its great library are located. He considers the invitation a slight detour from his path, and with a sly smile at the demon, says that maybe the Blander family's comedy is worth it. Shortly after a few hours, the two arrive at the imposing mansion. Alfredo comments that it's already late and suggests they rest. He hands them over to a maid named Lace, and Lace, speaking seriously, asks that the young master Damien please follow her. As Damien gets nervous talking to Lace, when she tries to take him away, the boy panics, screaming and desperately apologizing. Meanwhile, in another part of the mansion, a door bursts open, and a woman, clearly the lady of the house, asks Alfredo where Damien is. He replies that he found him, and that the Gray Lady is already on her way home. The woman reacts very angrily, casting a powerful spell on him, which quickly explodes in the air. Desperate, she demands to know if Damien is okay and promises serious consequences if something has happened to him. However, Alfredo quickly calms her down, explains everything that happened, and after hearing all of it, she sighs, appears to have relieved her son's debt, and thanks the butler. Meanwhile, Alfredo thinks it was a stroke of luck for both her and whoever touched the young master. After all, this woman was once known as a feared blood witch. He recognizes that, with her fierce temper, it could have been much worse. After clearing everything up for her, the woman thanks him again, and Alfredo mentions something curious, talking about the young master Damien's friend, the boy Aster, and comments that the boy sensed his presence and prepared to face him even before he appeared. He says that Aster had a mana bullet ready to be fired at any moment. Very impressed, the woman acknowledges the boy's talent, especially coming from the gray zone, and based on that, offers him a little favor. And now, later, he finds Aster again and makes an unexpected proposal, as he wants the young man to become his successor. Alfredo speaks with great confidence, sure that the boy will not refuse. He explains that this is a rare chance for someone from the gray zone to achieve wealth and prestige. However, to the old man's shock, Aster simply stares at him coldly and replies, without beating around the bush, that he is not interested. As the old man is left in shock, he wonders what the boy just said. Did he really hear that correctly? But quickly, Damien appears and asks his friend, "What do you mean?" Thus, Aster thanks Alfredo for wanting to make him his successor, but he prefers things as they are. He ends up saying he is truly grateful, while Alfredo, still surprised, wonders why, but quickly realizes something and thinks it is arrogance. Having been born with nothing in the gray zone, he learned more than just from his talent and thus sees himself as someone above the others. He begins to say that he understands and tells Aster that he also came from a common family. He was arrogant when he was young before realizing the realities of the world. However, Aster shows complete boredom, thinking that all this talk is a waste of time. But Alfredo continues and says that at this moment, Aster must think he can do anything, even conquer the world. But Austin says he doesn't think that way. This only irritates the butler more, and he starts comparing him to the goblins of the valley, creatures that did not know the dangers outside. But Austin asserts that he wouldn't be a goblin, he would be more like an Ivern, and that was the last straw for Alfredo, deciding to show him how vast the world is because he wants him to understand just how terrifying this world can be. Thus, he takes Aster to a huge hall, revealing several young people lined up who quickly greet the head butler. Alfredo asks Aster's opinion, saying that everyone there was the talent of the Blonder, family of the same age as him. The boy observes silently and acknowledges that they are indeed impressive, but as he locks eyes with them, he sarcastically winks, saying that all he sees there are goblins. Alfredo then asks if he would accept the offer, promising that he could shine like they do, or even more. But Aster responds without hesitation that he did not like to shine, which greatly provokes Alfredo. In that moment, among the apprentices, Winston steps forward with a very mocking smile, telling Alfredo that if the boy had any sense of value, he wouldn't have refused. And since he does refuse, it's because he doesn't understand the weight of the position. and no talent present in the hall, so Aster offered to give a demonstration and suggested a duel. The fruit considered this idea quite bold, but ultimately agreed. Thus, Aster, realizing he had been a bother to everyone, accepted immediately. However, before anything, he asked Alfredo to choose his opponents, and Alfredo obliged. Consequently, Arthur stepped forward and pointed to Winston and 4 other apprentices. He declared that he would take on all 5 at once, leaving the group completely shocked, laughing and mocking them. He said that if they were scared, it was better for them to die right away. Alfredo was very surprised, but then started to laugh, thinking that yes, this was the spirit his successor should have. But before anything, he warned him that those words could come off as an insult. Nevertheless, Aster confidently replied that he was ready. Thus, the rules were set. Aster had to endure for 1 minute. If he succeeded, he would win a prize, but if he spoke, he would have to answer for his words. He understood that if he responded, it basically meant he would force himself to become the next butler, a clear attempt to trap him there. Still, he accepted. As he prepared, the coach of the apprentices showed some worry, telling Alfredo that this duel was too dangerous. Alfredo's vault replied that the risk made the experience valuable, and that breaking the boy's stubbornness was the only way to make him grow. The coach, on the other hand, was very anxious about it, fearing that if Aster were hurt, he could lose his career. And over in the corner, watching everything, Dami was with Lenzi. The coach went to the young master, pleading with him to stop Alfredo, saying this duel could end badly. But Damien seemed more excited than everyone, which only made the coach more scared. At that moment, Lenzi intervened, reminding Damien that their means had restrained him if he got involved, which made him back off. Then, at that moment, Alfredo ordered the coach to start the duel, and this man, very resigned, simply obeyed the command. By his side, Dami warned that he would be back soon and asked him not to interfere. He smiled at her, saying he understood. Thus, the coach approached them and began to explain the rules, which would be in a turn-based combat. However, Aster started to ridicule in his thoughts, considering this an annihilation battle and not a training session. But the coach continued saying that the duel would only end when one side surrendered. And so Aster basically mocked, calling Aster a lucky stray, promising he would be crushed. After he spoke that, the coach signaled the start and the opponents began to advance. But quickly, Aster reacted, launching a direct attack on Winston, landing a powerful blow to his chest, which made the apprentice scream in pain, utterly incredulous, while our boy started declaring that he would be the one to teach them a lesson, holding a mana bullet and stating that the first lesson was simple: the smaller peppers are the hottest. And seeing that, incredibly, the star recognized the technique, mocking that it was just a basic manipulation of a human, something useless in combat. But then the star presented him with the second lesson: never judge people in advance. In the next moment, he fired his mana bullet, which exploded with tremendous force, sending 5 apprentices flying. With a calm look, the star commented that the world was vast and bitter, and then landed a punch on Winston's face. He said he could teach all the techniques that the defeated would need, and that they should study that well. However, Winston, on the other hand, was completely dazed and furious, shouting that he was a lunatic and that was not magic. But our hero made a very quick motion while saying it was magic, known as body magic. And observing that, the coach was shocked while Alfredo watched Aster crushing the opponents one by one. He carefully analyzed the technique used and realized that the mana bullet had been compressed 3 or 4 times, and a shiver ran down his spine, imagining what would have happened if that shot had been directed at him. It would definitely have been dangerous, but deep down, Alfredo couldn't help but admire him for his monstrous mana control. Suddenly, he felt a familiar presence and turned around at once, surprised by Bianca's Law arriving. But the coach, on the other hand, just sighed in relief, believing she came to save the apprentices from that immense chaos. And this is Bianca's Law, observing the training field taken over by chaos and the wounded, questioning what had just happened, and that Alfredo, agitated, responded that it was just a test, while his lady cast a cold glance around, clearly doubting his explanation. She asked with a touch of sarcasm if that was what he called a test. Without wasting any more time, she ordered Alfredo to gather the apprentices and leave, and then asked Dami and Wester to return to their quarters while our story continued. He just thought it was too bad as the fun had come to an end, but Lady Bianca kept talking, turning directly to Trainer Ron, and with a single word, she dismissed him, leaving the man with his head down in silence. She turned to Alfredo, saying he had gone too far, but quickly Alfredo apologized, saying he was ready for any punishment. But the lady, instead of reprimanding him, changed the subject and asked for the details of the duel, while asking if Dami had helped Wester. However, Alfredo denied it, explaining that the boy was surprisingly skilled in combat combat, and added that the mana bullet he used had been compressed 3 or 4 times, which he deduced to be completely absurd and excellent mana control. She couldn't even hide how impressed she was, and curious, asked if he had defeated 5 apprentices with just 1 bullet. Alfredo confirmed that yes, and Aster did everything by himself. Then she asked about the proposal that Alfredo had made to the boy, and upon finding out that Esther had declined, a slight smile appeared on her face, for the refusal piqued the lady's interest, and she decided to personally reassess Esther. So she ordered that he be brought to her office. Sometime later, she signs the 4th of her office when our boy was called for the meeting. She welcomed him with all her elegance, inviting him to sit down, and Damien was right beside her munching on some food. Thus Esther told him that he had been informed of the summons, but nonetheless remained calm, showing no signs of nervousness. She handed him a small box from the table, explaining what she had learned about the promise of the gift that Alfredo would give him. Thus Aster remembered this. The only thing was that he didn't expect the lady to have prepared something so quickly. She asked him to open the box, and inside there was a high-quality elixir, a rare and valuable item, which surprised Aster greatly. However, he immediately began to suspect, for he knew that such generous gifts often came with a condition. Bianca noticed his situation but quickly reassured him, saying that William had rewarded him for helping Damien and apologized for what happened in the duel. Even so, Austin remained suspicious and asked if by drinking the elixir he would be bound to the Blander family, but she denied it. He asked if it was poison and she assured him it was not. However, he hesitated, asking for one last confirmation that there were no hidden conditions. Lady Bianca confirmed once again. Only then does Austin thank her, accepting the gift, and for him, it was certainly an unexpected gain. But before he could relax, Lady Bianca stated that she had another proposal. Thus, Austin sighed inwardly as he already suspected. She offers him a scholarship so he can attend the academy along with Damien. He explains that the boy should have started school the previous year, but he refused to do so, and therefore she wants to ask for Aster's help since Damien admires him. Our gaze confirms this admiration, realizing the complicated position of Lady Bianca, for if she pushes Aster away, the boy will run off again. This Aster senses the moment and thinks that studying at the academy is an excellent opportunity, and the connections he can make are valuable, but he also feels like he's being pulled into the Blando family's affairs. In the end, he tells her that he will think about the proposal, and Lady Bianca agrees, asking him to inform her once he has made his decision. However, before he leaves, she calls him one more time and asks why he rejected Alfredo's proposal. Aster simply smiles and says that his knees are too precious to him, leaving Lady Beth very surprised by his response. Right behind the door, in another corner, Alfredo wonders what kind of audacious response that is. Now at night, after obtaining Elixir 60, he begins to observe that energy and is surprised by the massive increase in his mana. He wonders if this efficiency is due to his new physical structure and normally absorbs spiritual power, provided some pieces do not compromise it, but he feels nothing, and it is more effective than he thought. After that, his thoughts wander to the academy. After reflecting, he decides that he has made his decision and sees many advantages in enrolling, the main one being the ease of finding a sponsor. Yet, Aster had a strong impression that he was walking into a trap. He decided to take a walk to clear his mind, but just as he was about to leave, a young man with platinum blonde hair stops him right away and asks if he is Aster. Observing his face, he thinks that this kid must be from a wealthy family. Feeling annoyed, he denies being Aster, and the boy is quite surprised but doesn't back down and continues with several sarcastic comments, criticizing Aster's gray hair and his uncomfortable eyes. Our boy, irritated, calmly replies that the hair color varies with the lighting and asks with false innocence how his eyes could be uncomfortable. Quickly, the young man steps back and admits that Aster's eyes seem kind, apologizing for confusing him before leaving. However, at that moment, Alfredo rushes to Aster, begging for forgiveness and saying that he couldn't sleep. He thinks to himself that he shouldn't be so humiliated for a butler, but the platinum-haired boy turns around and starts shouting that he was right all along, claiming that this is Aster's look, similar to that of a dead goblin. Surely it's not common. Then, Wester calmly confirms his identity and, completely furious, the boy begins to accuse him of lying and threatens to kill him very softly, but Alfredo's sharp gaze silences him immediately. The young man starts to back down, demanding that Aster come to the magic hall later to correct his bad behavior, and Aster just agrees, not worried at all. After the boy walks away, Alfredo asks if there's a problem, but Aster just smiles and says there's nothing to worry about. Thinking the situation arose at a good time, he turns to Alfredo and asks if he can see the lady of the palace. After a few minutes, minutes, Lady Bianca receives him in her office and immediately asks if he has made a decision about her proposal. With a confident smile, Asta confirms that he will enroll, surprising Lady Bianca with his quick decision, but she is still pleased and asks him to feel at ease, thanking him before he leaves. As Asta walks away, Alfredo enters the room and Lady Bianca happily informs him that he accepted the offer. Alfredo, on the other hand, cannot hide his excitement and says that this is to be expected from a boy with such passion and a burning flame in his eyes. He begins to explain his plan to Lady Bianca and comments that in the first semester it will be very easy for him since the family will cover his expenses, but soon in the second semester, the boy will face difficulties paying the high fees of the academy. The professor predicts that Austin will become anxious, and it will be at that moment that he will emerge as his personal sponsor. Seeing this, Lady Bianca quickly interrupts him, saying that he is making too much noise. Embarrassed, Alfredo just apologizes and leaves. After he exits, Bianca reflects on his plan, finding it very naive, but realizes that Alfredo's confidence comes from the fact that he was drawn to a very similar method, and in the end, she feels sorry for him, calling him a poor soul. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the mansion, Aster walks straight to the magic hall where the secondary boy was waiting for him. Upon arriving, he is greeted by a strange guy, completely hooded, who asks why he came. And Asta hesitates for a moment, realizing that he doesn't know the name of that boy, but the hooded figure seems to be waiting for him. After the greetings, he leads him to the door while warning him to watch his head. As soon as Asta opens the door, he understands the warning when a storm of papers flies in his direction. Once the dust settles, someone right in front of him asks if he is Asta and says it's a pleasure to meet him. This platinum-haired man with sharp eyes introduces himself as Edinho von Blendor and asks if he has seen his little brother. While I ask you what he means by brother, he realizes that in the end, that damn kid called his older brother, and that's our boy. He begins to remember the past and thinks that if there's one thing he's learned by infiltrating various academies, it's that wizards study magic and are called pen holders. Their characteristics are, first, messy hair, because they pull their hair so much it stops growing. From there, they divide into several stages. In stage 1, they deny that their hair is falling out and wear a hood to cover it. In stage 2, they give up the denial and accept it. In stage 3, they completely shave their heads. And in the last stage, the point where they try to make the impossible possible, there's the image to make hair grow, which to this day no one has managed to create. But this guy in front of him is completely different. This friend starts by saying that first, he will apologize. He was wondering if he was acting that way for being the younger brother, but he is sure that the young master's guest would not make such a rude mistake. While Wester shows no reaction, he realizes that this guy is amazing, and he is actually quite young. He asks Wade if he happens to work at the Magic Academy, and Wade replies that yes, he is currently serving as the vice principal, which surprises Wester, thinking about a vice principal being so young. Surely, a prestigious family like the Blendors wouldn't place someone from a lateral side without any reason, which means he has the proper skills for it. Thus, Ed surprises our boy by staring at him and states that young Master Asta is a bit different, and he is not like the typical rebellious youth from noble families. While our boy asks if that's really the case, he remembers that wizards from that place were supposed to have dark circles under their eyes, but besides not having dark circles, he has that kind of smile. This guy must be a different kind, but he still realizes that he has great compatibility with him. Therefore, Ed says that he is, in fact, he asks is encouraged to join the Xenium Academy and congratulates him while our excited boy just thanks him. Ed starts talking about how this is a great opportunity and there is also much to learn there. In fact, he graduated from Xenia Academy too, specifically from the 145 class. After he says that, Astro begins to wonder if he is trying to get to know him by talking about the Academy. Thus, Ed says that he is entering Xenia. He got a bit excited and is just making small talk. Then, he asks how about returning to the main point. Astro asks what the main point is, and Ed says that before that, there's something he would like to confirm. He asks if by any chance he would risk his life for a friend, which shocks our boy who wonders what this guy is talking about. Ed then states that this is the issue that concerns him, the reputation of the Blanders. If he can risk his life, he will give him that book. Astro sees that cover and wonders if that book really is the Blander family's secret, the secret book about healing light magic. Now in the morning in the greenhouse, the lady of the house is doing her gardening while lost in thought. While pruning the plants, she thinks that since Demir went to the academy, something that had been giving her a headache not to go has been resolved without problems, and that is one less worry for her. She thinks about Astro. That boy is a great friend. His talent is also good, and his personality is a bit strange. Even though Alfredo says that sometimes he is a little shit, he has a shameless side. At that age, everyone is like that, but still, what she liked most about him was that even after learning where Damien was from, he didn't change his attitude one bit. He is certainly different, and that's why he deserves to stand beside Damien, but also because of that, he belongs nowhere. He is like a bird out of the cage. There are many ways to kill the people around, and she needs to think about the time she has for Bailey Damien. She can't lose someone with so much talent. Now, back to our boy staring at that book. He still wonders if it really is the Blander secret. He realizes this could be a trap, and already faces Wade. Those clear and transparent eyes. Maybe that's why he cannot read him. If a person is good or bad, their eyes will show some emotion, but as if he were a perfect assassin, there is no emotion at all. In other words, it's as if he is wearing a mask to the point that not even he can know his true self. And so he says that this is not something to be taken lightly, and that he cannot be careless in his response just because of what is in front of him. Our boy says he will answer, and that he hates this, which surprises Wade a lot. If our hero feels more confident and thinks there's no reason to be uncomfortable, if they're in the same boat, he tells Wade that, well, if there's something he would like to know, he can speak up, because if it's doable, he will do it. But if it's not doable, he definitely won't do it. Wade becomes very serious and says that merely listening could put his life at risk. If he listens and refuses, he might have to kill him. However, Arthur becomes very angry, staring at him, and says that then he should just kill him, since you only live once. But think about it. This is your second life. At that moment, Ed becomes very silly and begins to unleash his power, standing up from the table as the room trembles. He starts trying to scare Wester, but Wester shows no reaction and simply retorts, staring back at him. After that, Ed just smiles and says that he really can't do that. He says that young Master Esther passed the test and that he will speak plainly. The truth is that he needs someone he can trust, and besides that, it can't be from the Blinder family. After he says this, our boy thinks he nearly punched him with all his strength. Ed states that, to be precise, he has high expectations, and everyone born in our little circles is the same. Young Master Dean is very young and may not have a good eye for people, but why would he, being the leader of a family with a great reputation, involve someone from the gray areas alongside his own son? He imagined there was something more behind this, and luckily our boy concludes that his little brother got into a fight with a guest. He asks if that's the case, but Wade responds that he was going to talk in either a casual or formal way. He should choose one of the two. However, Wester is just a way to let it slide. Wade says that, well, it seems a good pretext has come up. The younger siblings and the guest ended up fighting. Then the older brother calls the two to talk, while our boy wonders how that's lucky, and he waits to hear if the Academy Dean wants his brother to use him as an excuse to involve the lion in a conflict. He wonders what he wants, and Wade asks how about that, as it was a really difficult situation for him to get involved in, not being in any internal conflict, and the Blinder family is very united, which means he is being watched by the Declan family. Our boy wonders how so, the Declan family, and asks why to Wade. Wade says that he said he doesn't care if he dies, so he will be frank even if he doesn't intend to kill him. In fact, he is currently researching the celestial origin magic of the Declan family, which shocks our hero a lot. He keeps saying it's to discover something, but he sees his reaction and realizes that apparently he knows celestial origin magic and a secret technique of the Declans that only their descendants can learn, but he managed to acquire it with a lot of effort. However, our boy quickly stops him, tells him to wait a moment, and asks if he wasn't supposed to be dead. I will investigate this, and how he is still alive, and if he is researching it having someone from Blunder, why didn't he look for ways to destroy it? But Wade says he doesn't know much about that, and that the Declan family is a bit out of the ordinary. If he had known that he was researching it, even he, the Dean, would be dead. But he should say that at first he studied it with the intention of destroying it, but he asks if he cannot understand celestial origin magic, which is the root of all secret arts of the Declans. He imagined an auxiliary method that will improve this secret art, which is already perfect in itself, so he can't destroy destroy it and asks if it were him, he could understand his feelings. Esteban becomes worried and thinks that this guy is not just crazy, he's crazy as hell, completely deranged. This master confirmed that Wade is completely insane and made the mistake of conducting this research in his family's territory. Suddenly, everything connects with the events of his past life. He understands that the real reason the Declan family created the blunder was Wade's research on his new technique. Fair saw the enormous potential and decided to take action. On the other side of the table, Wendy notices Wendy's silence and asks if he regrets it, but our boy ignores and returns to the main question, wanting to know why he was approached. Wendy explains that he hasn't told his family anything about the research yet, but it is suspected that the Declans might have planted a spy and that someone is tracking his research. They probably released the incomplete solution as a trap. Wendy starts laughing and admits that it was he who released part of the formula just to deceive them. Aster asks why he doesn't ally with the Declans, but Wendy replies that he has personal reasons, needs Aster for a secret job since he couldn't establish a bond with the Blando family. He explains to him that the research is a collaboration, but he got stuck on a part, and asks Aster to take a thesis to Professor Pero at the Xenium Academy. He promises him a good reward, and in return will offer Aster the light spell of Korra. And Aster, on the other hand, sees an opportunity in this property and agrees, but decides to raise the stakes and proposes to receive the healing spell immediately as collateral. And when the new formula of Declan's magic is ready, he wants to receive that as well, justifying that this way they would become true partners in the same boat. A do-or-die deal, and Audio thinks it's used, but still impressive. A simple and clear logical sequence in the request. And, after thinking a bit, Andy agrees and says that the name of the technique doesn't matter and that Wester still doesn't have the necessary foundation to use the new version, but promises to deliver it when it's ready, imposing a condition. Until Ted is completely finished, he may need Wester's help again and hopes he will support the work. Wester immediately agrees, hoping it's something related to the thesis. He takes the papers and jokes with Andy that he can't read them, and for a moment Andy is paralyzed, but soon Austin admits it's a joke, which makes Andy grumble that he is very rude and tedious. And so Austin asks about Professor Perum and if he can be trusted, and Andy smiles and says that he always competed with Perum for first place in the academy, even when they were assistant professors, but that he was always one step ahead even after returning to the Blander family. And I think I really researched that world is truly miserable, filled with crazies like Wendy. And now, later, in his room, I hate my question because he keeps so many things in his subspace. And among the books, Aster finds a letter sealed with red wax, and upon opening it, he reads the address, "To your dear Aster," and he scoffs at the word dear, but notes that it's Andy explaining that these are the magical texts he should study for the future. And Andy even wrote something of learning for Aster to acquire an intellect worthy of his status, and Estella for the blind stack of books of 132 books to find Korra's spell and the thesis of the new technique, and admits it's a truly wonderful gift, and realizes that Endo is certainly a genius capable of organizing the graduated learning path from basic to advanced, but also a complete madman. And this, recommending nothing wrong, he sits down to write and starts making a list of sponsors for his future in the tower. And the first name is Andy von Blonder. He has more than 132 books just for the isolated volumes, but in the complete set of knowledge, he is capable of building a solid foundation for any apprentice of magic. And before he just wanted to accumulate books, but now he understands that this collection will have the true identity of the tower, a place that offers knowledge to all who seek it. And now, elsewhere, Wendy is thinking about Wester, and initially he planned to hand his thesis over to him and be rid of him if he proved useless. But now he finds the young man very interesting and remembers Aster's boldness in the face of a death threat, realizing that he truly did not fear death itself. This genuinely amuses him, considering Aster to be different from all the others he himself calls pigs. I indicate that he has finally found someone on the same level, with the same goals, someone who truly desires results. And after a few days, when the time comes to leave for the academy, the maid informs Wesley that he will need to fill out some simple forms, but he and Dami are exempt from the entrance exams and are now officially students. She comments that the new uniform will look great on Wester, who thanks her before leaving. And now, in the carriage, carriage, Dami and Lady Bianca are waiting for them, and Dami calls out to Wester excitedly, urging him to hurry. Before they depart, Lady Bianca mentions that he should take care of himself and expresses hope that he can achieve what he truly desires, reminding him that this is a great opportunity. Astro smiles at her and thanks her, merely repeating her words about what he really wants. He decides that he will definitely succeed, thinking of the Genius Academy, the largest academy on the Eastern continent. He plans to win over all the sponsors with a confident smile. And now, in the cheerful cart, traveling, he eagerly awaits his new destination. During the journey, Astro becomes engrossed in the books that Andy handed him and flips through some pages, realizing how extraordinary a magical researcher Andy was. Based on the readings, he understood the basic principles of magic, which were quite simple, but their interpretations could branch out infinitely. He used water as an example. For some, it symbolizes life. For others, destruction. It all depends on perspective. And Austin then realized that each great family has developed its own form of magic from a unique viewpoint on the same foundations. When he finished reading the magical texts he carried, he came to an important conclusion. The curriculum prepared by Indy was directly linked to the celestial principles of the Dekra family. However, his thoughts were interrupted by Demian, who called him friend and urged him to look out the window. Excited, he told him that they had finally arrived. As soon as Austin lifted his gaze and saw the imposing structure before him, part of the difficult Genius Academy, the servant accompanying them said that the carriage could only go that far, and, according to the teachings of the founder, known as the Wise, during the admission exam it doesn't matter whether one is noble or not, he must enter on foot. So that's where they said their goodbyes, and she hoped he would learn many things at Genius Academy, wishing luck and wisdom to them. As soon as the carriage left, they began to walk, and Damon grabbed Esther's arm and urged them to hurry. He commented on how worried he was since he had said they would arrive late and might end up without seats. However, West thought it was absurd. After all, an entry ceremony wasn't a village theater where seats depend on the order of arrival. Soon enough, he realized that Lentz must have said that just to keep Damien from dawdling, so he decided not to give it much thought. When they finally entered the grand hall, they found the place partially filled. Damien was surprised by the number of students and remarked that the Alliance was right, and if he had taken longer, there really would have been no seats left for them. Still, West maintained his doubts and checked a piece of paper with the numbers that basically indicated their seats. Class M, chairs 11 and 12. Nevertheless, Damien pointed to some empty spots and wanted to sit quickly, but Austin asked him to wait a little while, wondering how that same boy who didn't want to come to the academy could be so excited now. However, before they could settle in, Damien accidentally bumped into a long-haired student, who immediately appeared very annoyed. This tall, arrogant-looking kid furiously asked what was wrong with him. Just then, Austin rushed to Damien, lifted him up, and asked if he was all right. Damien replied from the floor that he wasn't hurt, and quickly apologized to the student, saying he hadn't been paying attention to where he was going. When the two were about to leave, that arrogant boy stopped them right away, turning furiously toward them, and said he knew Damien had spat on his clothes. When Austin saw that, he deduced it was his friend Damien's saliva. Observing calmly, he knew that in a situation like this, Damien would take the initiative to apologize and try to resolve the issue. Indeed, Damien began to apologize while trying to clean that guy's clothes, but the more he wiped, the more dirt he made. And of course, he only made the situation worse. And it made the kid even angrier. That's when Wester realized that a fight was inevitable. Shortly after that, unable to contain his anger, that boy struck Damien, sending him to get out of the way. However, before he could continue, Asta intervened, firmly holding his fist, and said that he was making a mistake and suggested he stop there. The noble student, however, asked with complete disdain who he thought he was, but Asta responded firmly that he was Damien's friend and wouldn't stand by. And watch that. That arrogant kid mocked him, saying he looked like a loyal friend, but soon he would regret his foolish choice. Asta just sighed, realizing that his plan to make friends on the first day had gone down the drain, and, snapping his fingers, decided to forget the idea. At that moment, it seemed that the opponents preferred to settle things with fists rather than words, and because of all this commotion, they attracted a lot of attention from others who began to gather around, curious, waiting for the battle. Some recognized the gray-haired boy as a member of the Dunlap family, and rumors quickly spread. spread. Most bet on the Dunlap student, expecting him to come out victorious. But then, one of the students who appeared to have authority made his way through and reprimanded the others for just watching. One of the students asked if he shouldn't stop the fight, but the kid immediately denied it, ordering them to make way, as that was the only way they could fight for real. He told the mage of the Dunlap family to raise his magical barrier around the area, and this little confusion turned into a spectacle. Bets started to be placed, and the name of the long-haired boy was Esther Dunlap. Seeing that crowd, Esther kept a light smile while watching the boy. This Esther introduced himself as the second son of the proud Dunlap family and demanded to know his name. Asta calmly replied that unlike Esther, he came from no great lineage and was just a passerby and a weakling. After hearing this, the arrogant kid smiled immediately and said that Asta's origin didn't matter, but that a fight in such a small space should give the mage a disadvantage. Pretending to be generous, he said he would allow our hero to make the first move. Wester found the situation completely ridiculous and retorted that for someone who hated to talk, that kid had a sharp tongue, and asked if he was perhaps scared. But that comment truly irritated him, and quickly Wester attacked, launching a powerful punch. On the other hand, Wesley kept a smile on his face, and he told him that there was something else making the kid very nervous. When our boy charged at him while saying that he was not just a wizard, a powerful punch caught him right in the face, sending him flying. And as he watched the punch, Esther was sure that no magic student would be able to shake him with a simple blow, but he was completely stunned by the weight of Aster's strike. The impact made him stagger, wondering where such strength came from, and he called Aster a scoundrel, furious at the other's power. And while he was trying to understand what had happened, he was caught off guard by a healing spell cast on him. Looking to the side, he realized that Damien was the one healing him, but this confused him greatly. He couldn't comprehend why Aster's companion was helping him, but Aster smiled slightly and said that noble families were indeed on another level. Taking advantage of Esther's distraction, he landed another precise blow, reprimanding him for not focusing. Esther found himself in an absurd situation where one attacked and the other healed, and both acted as if it was completely natural. And while Damon frequently cast healing spells, Esther felt his heart racing, calling both of them lunatics. But at a certain moment, he simply wished to faint there and end this nightmare. And for the first time in his life, he wondered if he was afraid, but the audience beside him began to scream his name, demanding that he react soon, calling him the pride of the Dolan family, the star of the Eastern continent, and asking him to finish it to show the power of his lineage. Completely inflamed by these provocations, Wester exploded with fury and shouted, completely indignant, how a mere wizard could look at him with such disdain. He launched a furious punch at Wester, but the blow went wide as Wester easily dodged. Then Esther gathered all his strength and unleashed a devastating attack, accompanied by a massive explosion. Seeing this, the crowd erupted in cheers, declaring that this was the real Esther Dolan. But after he unleashed his strike, he felt an impact hit something, and he was soon surprised by a light touch. Completely confused, he looked ahead and saw Aster being thrown into the air, only to land easily. Rolling on the ground, he got up next, calmly shaking the dust from his clothes. Completely stunned, he wondered how this was possible and simply began to scream in fear. Not understanding what the hell was going on, he started running towards Aster just to attack him. However, Aster looked to the side and saw Damien very happy, thinking that Damien was still healing him, so he needed to finish him off in one blow and was contemplating what he could use to do so. He thought of the solution and believed it might work. If he could channel the power into his hand. Remember that this is a technique he developed with his companions in his past life and uses the vision of magical particles to extract energy. It uses mana, but it is neither magic nor a martial art. He was already observing the scruffy-haired boy right in front of him for an attack and considered that this strike was a pure application of magical properties technique, the collision style. With a tremendous punch, he blocked Wester's blow. That punch was so powerful that the barrier started to break, injuring the students. When they finally opened their eyes, they asked what was going on, with both in battle stances but completely paralyzed. To everyone's shock, Wester knelt down and then fell face first to the ground, while our boy remained standing with few injuries. At that moment, the crowd fell into shock and went silent, watching the outcome of that fight. To celebrate his victory, our boy raised his hand and signaled for everyone to applaud, shout, and celebrate, for he was the winner. winner. Seeing that Aster was really impressive, they remarked on how amazing he was and wondered if he was truly a wizard and what kind of fighting style that was. At that moment, Damien called for his friend and walked over to Aster, asking if they had won. Aster said yes, they won while he was looking around. Now he was acting like a child. Back there in the crowd watching that fight, a student asked how a magic student could fight like that. It was truly very vulgar. Surprisingly, an adult approached them and told them to get out of the way. He asked who was responsible for starting a fight on the first day of the entrance ceremony, and when asking each of them who did it. Meanwhile, Austin realized that in the end, he had caused quite a problem, but he was fine. After all, he was a mercenary and had several ways to escape. However, as he was about to leave, his friend Damien stepped forward and said it wasn't the others. In fact, it was they who started the fight, pointing at the two of them. The inspector walked up to them and asked if it was the two of them, and Damien replied that yes, it was they who started it, with Aster Dolan himself lying on the ground unconscious. And so, the three are taken to the principal's office. Now, in the office, Dami and Austin are called, and the two say yes, while the teacher states that since they confessed, he will let this slide without any penalty. The other student also doesn't seem to be that hurt, but he will keep an eye on them from now on, while Austin just keeps saying yes. Exiting that room, Austin thinks it's a relief. The entrance ceremony hasn't started yet, and those two are heading toward it. They start looking for their seats, while the surrounding students wonder if that isn't the guy who dresses like a martial artist with that body, and how a magic student could fight with his fists. That was quite impressive. Right behind Austin, Dami is waving goodbye to everyone, saying that there are a lot of people watching them. Meanwhile, Austin thinks it's a drag. He has practically become a celebrity. Finally, after a bit of time, they find their seats. In front of them, the academy is very happy, saying it seems like their friend saved a spot for them, and that their friend is really amazing. Not wanting to ruin his happiness, Austin just says, yes, that must be it. Finally, in front of the auditorium, the academy principal begins to speak that, following the teachings of the first principal, the academy must do this and that, and then more of this and more of that. It is a very, very long speech that makes the young gamer simply fall asleep while he thinks the principal is impressive. He didn't expect him to give such a long lecture. However, quickly, our boy notices something strange. His friend is sleeping right next to him. He finds this very funny and innocent as he wipes his own hand on his beard. But in the next second, Dami notices something strange. It's an assistant talking to the principal, who has something very important that he needs to attend to immediately. As they talk, the students merely observe. After grasping a bit of the situation, the principal says it's alright and apologizes to the students, but states that something urgent has come up and he will conclude his lecture here. However, the ceremony will continue. After he waves goodbye to them, another teacher comes up on stage. She approaches the microphone and starts shouting for everyone to pay attention, startling all the students who were sleeping, including Dami. She announces that she is Sol Jaira and that she will continue with the ceremony in place of the principal, who was unable to finish his lecture due to an issue. To continue the ceremony, she will start with the freshman oath. So first, she will call upon the representative of the Magic Division, Dahlia of Eddie Nike, and the girl speaks, rising from her bench and stepping up to the stage. The students ask if she is from the Nike family and if she really took the entrance exam. They question if her skills are not good enough, but another guy tells her to dismiss that before speaking because she is the third daughter of the head of the family, and if her skills are not as good as those from the United family, it's allowed for her to take the entrance exam. Watching her from above the counter, our boy is quite intrigued by her as he remembers Dahlia, and that this is the Declan family, the most powerful family of wizards in the East. Thus, Nye's family is the second most powerful, and in it, Dahlia grew up to become the future representative of the eternal second place, the Nye family. Back then, she was quite capable, and even at the time of her retirement, he received no help from her. This is because they did not get along well, and some might call them terrible friends. Yet, it's good to see her entering this year, and this is the teacher, calling the next one. The representative from the martial arts division, named Pooh, and the people say that's right, and he goes up on stage while our boy thinks they didn't mention any family names, so he doesn't seem to be from a noble family, but even that extra's family doesn't seem to be much, and the noble families must be joking. Then, the two students start performing the heat rotation, and after a few minutes, they complete the rotation for the entrance ceremony. Now the teacher says she will introduce the teachers of class 172, and she asks, "Teachers, please step forward." To Aster's surprise, while Dahlia was coming down from the stage, she stared at our boy, leaving him quite stunned, wondering if he saw wrong or if she is really looking at him, but in the end, it doesn't matter and he simply looks away. At that moment, Dahlia tripped on the stairs, landing face first on the floor, while our boy thinks of nothing else, only about Professor Param, as he wants to know who that professor is. Thus, several teachers begin to introduce themselves, but he wonders when Professor Param will appear. Finally, after a few minutes, a new teacher steps onto the stage, greeting the students, saying that he is Param and will be in charge of the classes on magical principles of magology. He thinks he was expecting him to resemble Wade, but he is completely different. And yet, Wade wears a knight's mask for society, so he shouldn't judge him too quickly. After all the teachers have introduced themselves, Jara states that with that, the introduction of the teachers has ended, and they conclude the entrance ceremony. Now they should follow the staff to their designated dormitories. Right next to Aster, Damon is still asleep, and our boy pokes him to wake him up while asking if it's over yet. Aster says no, that they caught him sleeping and kicked them out today, so they're going home, which quickly leaves Damon shocked. He stared at our boy and then started shouting in sheer desperation, because if his mom finds out, he's in big trouble. After a while of explaining to him and calming Damien down, our boy finally headed towards his dormitory. He stops in front of a door and wonders if this is it, but as soon as he opens the door, he notices 2 beds. As he starts to look around, it's quite impressive, and in that box must be the supplies he will need. They give this to all students, and he starts putting away the supplies along with his clothes, realizing that even the smallest item indicates his status. But at that moment, to Aster's surprise, the door opens. When he looks, he sees his roommate, who surprisingly is the same guy who participated in the entry ceremony, and he remembers his name was Pooh, but he wonders why he looks a bit irritated. This Pooh seems a bit arrogant, only saying that neither of them should bother the other, and that he doesn't care what he does, and if he wants, he can stay up late, but prefers that they don't get involved in each other's business, including conversation. After he says this, our boy just stares at him, quite surprised. This Pooh steps in front of him, staring while asking if he understood, trying to intimidate Aster. This kid asks why he isn't responding, while Austin notices he is very bold, and everything about him makes him very curious. They said he was one of the best, and he wants to know how good he really is. So for that, he charges at him with a very quick move, which surprises the boy, who asks what he's doing. Soon, Austin realizes that he's not bad at all, and even the way he drew his sword, he is sure it doesn't hit anything and is really quite impressive. But just outside the room, Damon starts shouting for Austin to come quickly. Our hero gives a satisfied smirk, asking what else, and if it's nothing, he'll step out for a bit, giving him a pat on the shoulder and just telling him to do whatever he wants. But in return, he shouldn't complain if he makes noise past midnight. After he leaves the dormitory, he finds Damien waving at him while asking who his roommate is. Aster says he has no idea who that is, but Damien asks how he can have no idea and if he really doesn't know who he is. Our boy replies that of course he is too busy to know who the others are, but then he says that finally he wants to take a walk around the academy, and Alice said there are many things to see there, and she said it was mandatory for them to see everything on the first day, but he needs to go with a friend, while Austin himself thinks that the Zen Academy is quite large, and that's why it says they should get familiar with it so they don't get lost later and that it's worth it. But besides that, there's something that bothers him, and it's not as much as in his past life, but his senses are on alert because he can see the Declans, or at least the mercenaries working for them. He starts counting how much time he has spent there. Then he begins to walk with Damien, counting each of the mercenaries. After a good while walking, now in the late afternoon, Damien says that this lake is really cool, and there's nothing like it back at his home, while Austin realizes that this is very tiring, and it feels like he has become some sort of babysitter. It must be why Alice threw him onto him, and if he sent Damier, it's just asking them to make one for him, and the kid asks what he means, while Aster says he just needs to dig a hole and throw water in it, then he can have one. And with sparkling eyes, Damia says that's true, he will ask for a bigger one than this for his house. Meanwhile, back at his mansion, besides feeling a chill out of nowhere but going back, Damier asks what name he should give to his lake, while our boy says he can call it Blood, Sweat, and Tears. In the meantime, at the mansion, Alice feels another chill, and back, Dama notices something peculiar and stares at that statue of a wizard and says he will ask for one to be made for him too, but it will be blood, sweat, sweat and tears. While our girl says she really liked that, he should also make a shape of a dragon with wonderful scales. And the kid is very happy with that idea. While again at the mansion, he feels another chill, this time much more powerful. And finally, after enjoying the view, the star is leaving, saying it's already quite late. While he has counted 7 mercenaries throughout the day, if you count those he couldn't find, there should be at least 10 around. And calculating how they are distributed, in the center, their egg is definitely the second magic hall. And this second magic hall is where Professor Perot's laboratory is. And just as he thought, their target must be Professor Perot, and the Deka must also know about their alliance. It's obvious they would begin to suspect Professor Perot, someone who has connections with Aiden. However, there behind him in the bushes, he notices another mercenary, and with a mischievous smile, he thinks about why they haven't gone after him yet. But it seems that just as he thinks about it, they started to act. So he wants to know how much he can discover about them. And now, at night, in the middle of the academy, one of those mercenaries starts to fly to another location. Jumping from tree to post, to tree and then into a gym. Once inside, another mercenary says he was waiting. The newcomer asks where the others are, but the one already there says they went ahead. The headquarters issued an emergency signal and they were ordered to regroup at the target's nest. The mercenary asks if it's the primary or secondary target, and the other says it's the secondary. It seems they discovered something about the primary target and obtained important information. Tonight, at midnight, the target will be delivered to the secondary target. That mercenary states he understands, and Wade, who is the primary target, has started to move. If the order has reached them, among the various secondary targets, the one they must watch should be Professor Paro, but soon he becomes worried and asks about the unique digits. If they are talking about confronting such a monstrous professor alone, at least number 1 or some of the unique digits should come to face him, but the mercenary says number 1 isn't coming, nor are the other unique digits. Now, another person has been sent on the mission, which is the fire demon, Callahan. He is the one who will join them. That mercenary starts to suffer and asks how it could be Callahan. As far as he remembers, he is the vice leader of the Declan's mage squad, the so-called Red Gem. But yes, he would be enough, only he is very problematic, has cold blood, and would do anything to complete the mission, which means they are being warned to risk their lives on this mission, especially with that psychopath. Another mercenary begins to say that this operation cannot turn into an open conflict. Having something known about a noble family exposed in such a mission would be unpleasant. The mercenary agrees, saying he needs to think about that too, and they should go now, because if they don't join them soon, their chances of survival will be nearly 0. After the two begin to fly to meet up with the others, our boy was hiding in the corner listening to everything, while realizing that his mission is going to be tonight at midnight. And if they brought that crazy psychopath Callahan, and this, the master, begins to remember Callahan. Even when he was a mercenary, he seemed to have never left his prime. After the Declan family wagered their own survival against the Blando family, he remained loyal to the declining family, proving his devotion, and even at this moment, he is dangerous. However, his golden age came after the Blando War and the Declan's firestorm, which no one can stop. He is the man who managed to engrave his name in history as a war mage, which means he needs to end this today, and Callahan's magic is one of the fire arcane arts of Declan. Since he is a mage recognized across the continent, he is worth all this. Even so, he wondered why these mercenaries appeared suddenly, but it seems he gained an unexpected advantage. There is still one question left for him. The target they mentioned, Wade's thesis, is in his hands, and even without them, they're saying she will surrender herself today to the secondary target, which is Professor Paro. It cannot be that the thesis in his hand is fake, and there's no way their objective could be anything other than the thesis, which means what will be delivered today is a false thesis. But soon the scene shifts to his room, with that arrogant kid from before getting ready for something. Then he puts on his cloak and goes over to Aster's bed to see if he's sleeping, not realizing something. He starts staring at Aster, thinking he is in a deep sleep, but little did he know that it was a wooden doll. Now, in the second tower of the academy, in Professor Baram's office, he just sighs indignantly, thinking that these Declan are the damned ones. He tolerated it when they crossed the line and did nothing, but now they dared to invade his territory. He doesn't even know why they are so confident and what that would mean, but he soon says he understands. The next second, someone opens the door and he stops in front of Professor Paro, while the professor thinks to himself that this is Poe. As soon as he calls out his name, the kid is shocked, knowing he has been recognized, while the professor says that the next time he disguises himself, he should refine his hetero properties. That's the foundation demonstration of the arts of concealment. Then, without answering the professor, because he is very rude, Pooh hands him that envelope, while Parum says that, well, if he has another chance to do this. The boy becomes worried about what he is saying. After they deliver the paper, Parum realizes that this was Wade's doing. He planned to deliver this thesis to him, avoiding the eyes of the Declan, but still, he was caught in such a stupid way. He is sure it's not this, but that damned fox is not easily caught, so he asks himself what kind of trick he is using. But after thinking about it, the whole office explodes, surprising both of them, while the person who enters says it is a pleasure to meet them, especially Professor Barome, and his name is Kala Ray. He wonders if a professor who lives locked in a laboratory could know him, while Pooh is already setting up his base, ready to attack. But the scruffy-haired kid says it seems they have another guest there, and he must be a mercenary. And playing by how he put his hand on his sword, it seems he knows who he is, but he asks the teacher if he knows him. Only to his hatred, Paro says he has never heard of him and just tells him to stop playing around and say what he wants straight away, since this piece of shit is rubbing it in his face. And after he says that, Kala Rame gets furious, and this guy starts to clown around, saying it's really fun and that nobody has ever talked to him like that before. But that's okay. He gets straight to the point, points at Pooh, and says he is going to die. He asks if he should leave an arm or an eye left over, but before he could attack Pooh, the teacher steps forward, activates our magic, and defends the boy. But Kayla's power is monstrous and destroys the entire office. With the office covered in flames, Poe opens his eyes, surprised by the scene where the teacher just defended him, and Paro tells Pooh that from now on he will not treat him like a student, but rather as a mercenary, so he must protect his own life, and Pooh says that's right, he will do that. While Paro thinks that, since no alarms have been triggered, it's quite possible that the Declan have used concealment magic so that no one would notice this. The only person he can trust is a very weak novice mercenary, and this guy, laughing on the other side, says that this envelope really looks like it came from the Blander, and it also seems that he won't hand it over easily, so he wonders what he should do and if he wants to play with him for a moment. At that moment, the magical cycle appears at his feet, sending a monstrous aura, while Paro realizes that outside the office, several mercenaries appear to attack them, and Calhoun is covered in flames, looking like a complete lunatic attacking the two. Poe begins to defend himself from the mercenaries, while Paro activates ice magic, attacking Calhoun. That immense power from the teacher further destroys his office. On the other side, in the dorms, finally, that explosive missile was our boy observing from afar, and from what he can see, things got pretty serious. So he picks up the mask to hide his face and remembers that it has been a while. And at that moment, he is no longer Wachter. He is mercenary Digito and this Wachter says that now it's time. He crosses his hands and starts to say, "Moon, please grant me permission to become a good mercenary again," while thinking that it's not like he was really someone good, to be honest. But right after doing that, he jumps off the building, heading towards that immense chaos. And now, back in the teacher's office, that psychopath just laughs, saying it wasn't bad for a mercenary, and he is holding the bat. While the people, the customer, are surprised by that immense power, he realizes he is in deep trouble and cannot believe that the so-called Esmangulido was a protective artifact, which was indeed quite lucky. However, soon behind him, Professor Pero tells him to get out of the way, already activating the immense power of ice and water to see if he can extinguish that guy's fire. As he says that it wasn't too bad, he can trust him a little more now, and soon the people realize that Pero is not holding the hater on his sword and wonder if this is an enchantment magic. While Paro asks if he can continue blocking the attacks, the crowd says as much as he wants, since there is no more retreating. If he can't block, he will die. But Karen from the front says that he is a mage and a warrior, so this is really a great duo, but she wants to see how much they can take, already attacking and defending with the sword, while Paro defends with his ice magic. Thus, Paro goes on defeating each of the mercenaries that advance towards him, thinking that if things keep going like this, they will end up being dragged down. In that case, he will have to use his trump card, especially against that crazy guy, when the amount of mana present in nature is limited and two commanding entities order at once. A struggle for control begins between the entities. Then he wonders how long he can endure. The long-haired one, looking at this, says he understands that he wants a power competition, Right, they will do just that. With his malevolent laughter, he intensifies his power even more, battling against Professor Paro's power, and that same clash of powers explodes once again in the office, throwing the crowd away while he starts losing consciousness, thinking that all of this is crap and that those two are complete monsters, with no way to escape. If it was meant to be like this, they should have just fought each other. The other mercenaries watching this are shocked by that, immense tornado, and comment that it is very frightening. Their leader tells them to wait, as attacking now is suicide and they should rest for a while. He turns around asking how many mercenaries they still have, but to their surprise, they are attacked by something. One of them screams that it is an ambush and that they should fall back. While they are dispersing, someone advances to the center of the battle, surprising everyone. Soon our boy stands in front of the two. They notice his presence and wonder who he is, while wanting him to notice his very cool entrance. The two question who this crazy guy is, and one of them asks if he is joking, telling him to attack that guy already, only for Callahan's surprise. Our boy leaps onto his neck, saying that this will be his tomb, which surprises Callahan greatly, who asks who this guy is that claims he will die. But to save himself quickly, he activates a magic circle, trying to blow up his opponent. Taking a step back, he becomes very out of breath, thinking that there was a mana diversion inside him, and our friend, who is obviously still alive, advances toward Callahan. As he spits blood, he says he can't attack. Then, at that moment, other mercenaries rush in to protect Callahan, who grabs a potion, thinking he needs to deal with the mana distortion. Moreover, he wants to know where this bastard came from, but as soon as he looks at him, he notices something strange. He is killing all the others very easily, as if it were nothing. While observing this scene, he thinks it's amazing, and that his movements show no sign of waste. It is extreme efficiency, and ideal and instantaneous magic. But soon he realizes that he was too caught up in the battle, wondering if he is really impressed by this. Then, getting very angry, he says he doesn't know who he is, but he has to die, activating several magical fire circles, unleashing that power against his opponent, who explodes all his allies together. He thinks yes, that's his face. After finishing his attack, he asks if he hit. He and some other mercenaries were caught in it, but who cares? He doesn't give a damn, because what matters is that the mission was completed, and that masked man must be eliminated for sure, as he is very dangerous. He takes another potion and says that being so destabilized doesn't suit him, and goes on thinking that he needs to regroup the other mercenaries to subjugate Professor Roberto. But while he was taking another potion, he hears a voice asking if that was all. Our boy starts to say that on the outside he may seem like a lunatic, but deep down he is as cold and cunning as a snake. From the very beginning, he knew he would blow the others up together with him, but he should know one thing: that coldness of his is what will kill you. Already appearing in the sky, high above Kalen, with the magic circle on his finger, he fires a magical missile. As the last thing Kalen thinks is that this was very fast. That power simply pierces his head, even cutting his own hair. After the hole forms in his forehead, he falls to the ground, dead. Finally, the star walks toward him, thinking that, as expected of Callahan, any other wizard would have died in that ambush. But he managed to counterattack, and the war wizard's reflexes and judgment were as good as always. However, his last spell ended up working in his favor. For if he had joined the other mercenaries and turned it into a war of attrition, he would have lost. After all, his mana is still very low, and if he strikes, he must get what he has good. And he looks at that bag thinking that most war mages don't trust anyone, so they carry their own grimoires. And of course, this space bag has the recognition magic, but then he undoes it. Now he has to worry about something else. Turning around, he says that Professor Parum is late, and Parum walks towards him, saying that, well, he was busy dealing with rats after having frozen them all. But Parum looks at him very seriously and says that most importantly, he wants to know if he is one of those rats too. Only Aster says that he just fought that lunatic, so how does he want to deal with him now? And what does he think it means to have defeated Declan's allies? But Parum doesn't say anything as he tells him he calls him a lunatic. Then it seems it was Wade who sent you, but he doesn't need to worry about him. While our boy wonders if this is the one he trusts so much, Parum asks who that mercenary with him was then, and if he divided the research in two, leaving our boy completely lost. He asks how it means to divide it in two, and that one is probably quite false, and Wade must have planned that. So he used a bait to lure the rats, and he probably wanted to strengthen the security of the city of Rays and the academy, while cutting the Declan family's influence. But he thinks about this, for even if the mercenaries used stealth magic, the fight was still quite intense, and even if the report was delayed, it doesn't make sense for the Imperial Knights to not be there yet. yet. So the Declan family must have bribed them. So Parum asks him if he has the real research, and Aster says that the thesis is there. Parum starts analyzing it and asks if he knows the content. While Aster says that of course he knows, Parum says he understands. Only our boy says he doesn't. Mind fighting, but he asks if he is sure about that. He wouldn't like to lose a great ally. Parum says that right, he received the paper safely and he wouldn't like to lose an ally either, so they will end it there, but he says he would like something in return and starts saying that Wade trusts only one type of person, someone who has their desires clear and aligns with his, and he must be that type of person since he earned his trust, so he should give something in return. Our boy says, I said that it could be a book. Only Parum asks what he means by a book. And our boy says that he is going to build a tower, a big and majestic tower, and inside it, he will place several books for anyone there. And he would like to have one written by himself about his perspective on the arcane sciences. Perot sighs and says, well, not that everyone can understand, but writing a book is not a bad idea and seems even fun. Our boy says that, well, he's going now, but Perot tells him to wait and asks how they will keep in touch. He must need to hand over another paper, and our boy thinks about that. Then he takes out something resembling a pearl necklace from his storage and tells him to wear it. This is a communication crystal, and the two halves are linked. He must break one of the spheres to get in touch with him and break more than one if he's in trouble, and he will save the trouble of looking for him, but Perot tells him to wait and says he doesn't know his name. But when he looks ahead, our boy has already disappeared. The professor wonders why he feels so bad. A little while later, the Imperial Knights appeared at the site and quickly isolated the area, temporarily evacuating the students from the academy to prevent any possible subsequent attack. And of course, Aster used this to blend in with the others. Damien asks his friend where he was, and Aster says he just got back. He just went to see a little thing, thinking it was Callahan's body, but the mercenaries is clear evidence. The Declan family should keep quiet for a while, but besides that, he wonders why his seal reacted during the fight. It usually doesn't respond, but when he blocked Callahan's magic, he felt a power surge through the barrier, which helped block the counterattack. So he's not going to complain. And it's not that the barrier strengthened, it was more like a rejection phenomenon, an elemental technique that mages often use. It prevents the conjurer from being harmed by their own magic, except he is very confused trying to understand what happened, but still, he doesn't understand why it only activated at that moment and what triggers his heal. But anyway, investigate, look to the side. He's the largest library tombstone that is inside the academy, and he will probably find something in there. Soon, behind him, someone wants to ask if asked, and it's a pleasure to him. His name is Sheen, and our boy asks, so what? And the kid says that he fought well, while our boy wonders if he came to fight. If he knows his identity, it's going to be a mess. He wonders if he should silence him, which in this case means killing him, but soon the kid, very excited, says that the creative fight against someone from the martial arts division during the admission ceremony. It was very impressive, and he asked how he managed to fight like that, while Austin realizes that instead of leaving an impression on him, he earned a good reputation, and even if he says his name, if it's a hint of respect, he mentions that the guy he faced back then had little respect, but that will change later. Sheen says he understands, but then there's an uncomfortable silence among the three. The boy follows Aster and asks if by any chance he can stay with him since he hasn't made any friends yet. It would be kind of strange if he still stayed with other people. He understands, and Aster thinks that's more or less it. The academy promises equal treatment for everyone, without distinction of background, and this is a promise of the academy, not the students. For someone like him, who came from a poor family, it's normal to endure that prejudice, but it's not that he cares about it. Our boy just said he didn't expect much from him, while he admits that, thank God, to be honest, he was quite nervous. When something like what happened yesterday spreads around, being alone seems a bit strange. Our spider mentions that he thinks he understands him, and then they both start to talk. Aster thinks that it's just like this, that it's a normal conversation, and in this life so far, he has only met lunatics. Professor Perron, Adrian, who is his butler, and Damien himself. He forgot how common people are, and now it's time to start his life at the academy, the most normal life possible. And now, the next morning, everyone is gathered in the auditorium, while Damien just yawns, saying that he is still very sleepy. Our boy continues reading his books, but soon, Shane appears. greeting Aster and Damien. He comments that he can't believe they have to come to class after all the chaos of yesterday. Aster agrees, saying it's quite difficult, while he thinks that this sheen from yesterday's conversation doesn't come from a noble family or have much money, and still doesn't seem shy. To be honest, he is quite lively and seems to be a decent person. But then Shebe goes over and asks Aster if he knew that his teacher would be Miss Zara. Aster asks who Zara is, while Shebe looks confused, asking if he doesn't know who she is. She's the one who single-handedly wiped out a horde of trolls. Our boy looks ahead and realizes that it's that girl. Now he remembers her. She was the teacher on stage during the entrance ceremony. Then she steps up to the podium and tells everyone that it's a pleasure to meet them, that her name is Zara, and that they had a little disturbance yesterday, but it's not something they need to worry about and should only focus on their studies. And now, before the first class, she welcomed each of them. Do you want to know if you will evaluate the quantity and quality of your mana? And soon she asks them which of the two he thinks is more important. Then quickly a girl raises her hand and Zira asks what her name is, and she says it's Argan. This Zira says she can answer, and the girl, a bit nervous, says she doesn't know the concrete answer, but if someone has a certain amount of mana, she would say that its quality is the most important. The teacher asks why that is, and she replies that when it comes to a wizard as powerful as you, the one with the best quality mana will naturally have the advantage. I think she thinks, well, that's a good answer, and mana quality affects the precision, stability, and power of spells. And even if you have a lot of mana, it is useless if you can't hit the target. But still, that is not the 100% correct answer, and soon the teacher gets upset with her, surprising the girl very much with that reaction. And this Zira asks Miss Argan which family she is from, and she replies that she is from the Pelham Barony. Zira very arrogantly says it had to be, and that makes the girl very sad, to the point of crying. Soon she asks the others if they have any answer, while starting to observe that no one wants to respond. Then she decides to point to a random guy and asks what his name is. He replies that his name is Philo, and he thinks that the quantity of mana might be more important, because in large-scale battles, a larger amount of mana would be more useful. She thinks that is true. From another perspective, quantity can outweigh quality, and summing up, it depends on the situation, and both can be equally essential. The teacher becomes even more irritated with this answer, staring at him with hatred, and asks what his family is. He replies that he doesn't have one. She moves on to the next, and each one responds. Some say it is the freezing speed and other things, but soon she gets irritated again and asks about the family, doing the same with each of them. I think that this question is what kind of person is this, and if this is perhaps an interrogation, and Zira said she heard everyone, and actually all of them were close to the truth, but the truth is that there was never a correct answer, which means she didn't want them to answer the correct response. They should think a bit more about what kind of answer they would give, and if it was really something they thought themselves, or if they were just trying to guess what she wanted to hear. And a wizard must never lose his conviction, no matter where or when. They must not act based on the looks of others, and must have the strength to keep their will strong until the end. And Alencar asks all the students if they can call this the mindset of a true mage. So from now on, they must become a real mage, and that is the message she wanted to convey to everyone. They should keep this message in their hearts, surprising all the students while our boy says it was great. In the end, he was right, but this is really a very crazy way to teach someone. Zira says that now they must one by one have their mana measured, and the first she calls is Miss Argan, greatly surprising the crying girl. Zira says she will be the representative of Class M3 of the Magical Division, and her previous answer was quite impressive. She will register the mana levels of her classmates, and the girl, very excited, just thanks Zira. Meanwhile, Aster thinks that, so this is how she trains people. Over by him, the team comments that they are very envious of that girl. Thus, Zira calls her assistant and tells him to step forward. Soon he uncovers the object, revealing a magical crystal with several insignias. Zira explains that most of them probably haven't seen this before, so it's time for them to discover everyone's mana level, and who knows, there may be a monster among them. She says it's alright, and the way to use it is simple. She instructs Miss Argan to place her hand on the crystal ball and circulate her mana to her. The girl replies affirmatively, placing her hand on the crystal ball, and after doing so, notices its reaction. The crystal ball starts calculating her mana, and soon the number 4 appears on the projector. The teacher says that they should be able to see clearly. Among the various indicators, the main one is the center. This represents the refinement index, which in other words is the quality of the mana, ranging from 1 to 10. Miss Argan is at level 4, and considering last year's average, which was about 3, this is quite impressive. The girl feels shy and very excited about this, thanking the teacher. The teacher says that now they will move on to the quantity of mana, and it is also very simple. She just needs to inject her mana into the crystal. As soon as she does this, the crystal ball begins to shine, and the teacher says that the amount can range from 0 to 100. Miss Argan's amount is 17, and considering last year's average, which was 15, is also a bit high. Judging by the quality and quantity of her mana, she can say that Miss Argan has been quite smart. She congratulates Miss Argan, leaving the girl very surprised by the compliment. Meanwhile, Shingui, next to Aster, says he hopes his level is high too. However, Aster also deserves that girl's attention, and he thinks that he can already see her future. That girl will become a graduate, and after a while, the teacher says she has matters to deal with, so she is leaving now, but they must continue the assessment under the direction of the assistant professor, and so each of them is testing themselves. And that Shane stands up and is coming to Asta because they are taking too long. As Asta stands up, he notices that Damon is sleeping, but soon they hear a noise, and downstairs there is a great reaction as someone had a refinement index of level 6 and his mana amount was level 20, which was very impressive. And the assistant professor asks what his name is, and the boy says it is Furion of Nai. West realizes that Theo is from the same family as Nike, and playing a bit with that, his hair color is different. He must be from a collateral lineage, and he can infer from the way he says his first name and then his full name. Thus, the assistant says that considering he is a member of a noble family, the results are excellent, and his mana capacity leaves a bit to be desired compared to the level 6 refinement, but still an impressive score. And the boy, feeling pleased, just thanks. While Dami finally wakes up, stretching on the other side, asking what that noise is. I think they explain that they are measuring mana, and Damer asks why, but our boy says he doesn't know either. But still, it won't hurt if they measure as well. After all, that is the lesson. And so, Damer gets very excited, asking if it's serious, and he wants to try too, while our hero thinks that Damer is going to make him very embarrassed later. And soon the three of them are going down, while people start realizing that this boy is the young heir of Blander, and he seems too young. And that one next to him is Wester, who hit that extra on the first day, and the boy feels a bit nervous about that, thinking that all of this sucks, and he didn't want to be known as someone who hit another on the first day. He was just too excited. And here comes the assistant professor, who steps forward and asks if he is the young man from Blander and why he doesn't come and try. And Damien asks Aster if he just has to circulate the mana, and Aster says yes. So basically, he places his hand on the crystal and something miraculous happens, surprising everyone, while they ask how this is even possible. And that boy from the Nai family is in shock, watching it and realizing that he is a monster because his mana quality is 9 and the amount is 67. And then the uproar happens, with everyone wondering what is going on and if this is not a mistake. And our hero observes the assistant's reaction and realizes that this is how normal people react to a genius, a wall that is beyond what they can imagine. He already knew that Dami was a genius, but he didn't know he was this absurd. And Dami is very silly, as he always asks if this is high, while our boy remembers that now he understands why that blonder monster is so strong. He was just born that way, and if the Damer from his past life had dedicated himself, the whole continent would have changed. But this time, it will be different, as Blonder will forever be an obstacle for the Declan, and he will make Damer transcend beyond any common limit. His nervous assistant tells Damien that he deserves the name Blando and that he is truly impressive, but he can't let this go to his head. A wizard's true ability is not determined solely by their mana. Depressed, he says it's fine, while he runs over to Aster, asking if he measured his too. But Aster says not yet, only that he starts looking from side to side, observing the others, and realizes that everyone must be curious about how he compares to Damien. He's not from a noble family, yet here he is, close to the heir of the Blando family, and even hit Dolan's second son. So he says he wants to see what he's capable of now, but he has to keep it discreet, and the average population is the safest and will cause fewer problems. Soon the assistant asks what his name is, and our boy says it's Esther. He places his hand on the crystal, thinking that he will just slightly adjust the properties of his mana and use a decent amount, but as soon as he does this, he notices something strange and wonders why the limiter is so low, thinking, damn, completely screwed. This is going to be much larger than he expected. Suddenly the number 10 then appears, and the amount of mana rises uncontrollably. The index turns red, showing an error, and soon the crystal informs that there was an error and the limit was that finger. So please restart the devices, and all the students are in shock, asking what the hell is going on. But Damien, on the other hand, is very happy with his friend, saying that he is so amazing. Only Austin says that it seems like it's not working and they should measure again. The assistant says yes, that's what it seems, but Demi says no, it's all correct. While our boy just tells him to shut up quietly, Demi insists again that it's right, it's definitely correct, but the assistant then says that he can go again since he already restarted. Soon another result appears with refinement level 3 and mana level 15, and everyone says it's as expected. The previous result must have been an error while he thinks, and he just sighs, thinking it's better to be a little careful now. Yet soon, behind him, the demon says he doesn't like any of this. Surprising our hero greatly, he turns and asks Damien where he learned that word, and Damien, very annoyed, says that his friend told him that when something is a lie, we say a real pain in the ass. So all of that there is a pain in the ass, but I think he's just pretending, thinking that now he can't speak the way he wants anymore, or else he'll end up teaching him bad habits. And so it is the end of the day in Professor Zara's office. She begins to look out the window, thinking about the battle that took place between the Declan family and the wizard named Callahan, who attacked Professor Perron, and well, Perron was quite famous back in the day, and he will be able to solve this, so it's none of her business. But soon the assistant walks through the door, saying that the tests are over and he brought the results. The professor starts analyzing and notices that this semester's levels are quite average. Nye's benchmark results are a bit disappointing, and Damien, blonder, has a score appropriate for the greatest talent in the family's history, and he definitely needs personal guidance. But soon she notices something strange and stares at the picture of Aster, realizing there was a mistake in the measurement and he had to retake the test. The error code was threshold exceeded, so she wonders who this Aster is and what he's capable of. And Demi, who is still a little irritated, asks his friend if he thinks it looks good, showing him the illusion of a dragon. I think he says it looks good. Yes. Then Demi says that's great, and this will be blood, sweat, and tears number 2. Except I think I told him to wait, and they can make it a bit more dynamic. He should spread his wings and make it look like he's about to pounce with his mouth open. And the demon says it looks cooler with his mouth open. Even Kamei next to him wonders why they change things so easily. And even the Grand Furion managed to manipulate only a spiritual body, but he's playing around with Amanda as if it were nothing, and it really is a very big world. He's just dog poop. And Wester thinks that, well, he understands how he feels, but what can he do? He has to just face reality and move on. And I, Demi, call Wester and say that today was a lot of fun. He thinks he made the right choice coming to this academy, greatly surprising our boy, who then smiles, saying it's good to hear that. And now, the next morning, in an isolated place, our boy looks at Callahan's space bag and notices that it's locked. But if he understands the principles of magic and has a good enough magical sense, he can easily break any mana patterns that the owner has put in place. And if he had the right tools, he could have finished this in a week. But since he had to stay hidden in the private training room, it took him a whole month, and even so, he didn't spend all his time doing that. He already transformed the elixir he got from Blander into mana and absorbed it. Moreover, he gained a considerable amount of knowledge at the academy. Anyway, what he wants to say is that he can finally open this. As soon as he opens the spatial bag, the first thing he grabs are vials of potions and then a cloak, but he says he can't wear that. Then, he picks up something very strange that looks like bracelets and notices that this is a defensive artifact and its power isn't that bad. Now it must be almost time for that to show up. Finally, he finds Declan's secret grimoire, the Crimson Flames, a secret magic inferior to the flames used by Farron, a damned magic that can even burn shields. Of course, he needs to master it to actually burn them, and it doesn't come together overnight, so he will laugh in his own time. But now that he stops, to think that was the semester performance evaluation today. After he returns from his training, he joins Shane and Damien in a circle of people while saying that there are a hell of a lot of people today. Shane goes up to him and says that it's true, but asks if he heard the news. Our boy asks what news, and he says there are rumors that this semester's evaluation will be the advanced through Kenny. A few days ago, some students from M1 overheard the staff talking that apparently they needed to fix Kenny during this busy period. I guess it it speaks to those who understand. This semester performance evaluation that the boss is talking about has 3 types of practical tests. The challenge corridor, a sewer-like maze where you must reach a certain objective, the advance through Kenny, where students run to the finish line, and the simulator, where you duel against another person or monster. Among these, the advance through Kenny might be the most famous, but no matter which event it is, he doesn't care as long as he passes without problems. That's fine, but Shibi doesn't seem to think the same way, and starts thinking of various strategies to get through Kenny. Just then, someone appears telling them to be quiet. The teacher walks in front of everyone, saying that he is a firefighter again. He is Professor Paran, the one in charge of Class M1 from the magical department. He will be observing their performance evaluation. As I watched, I smiled at him, thinking that it has been a while, and it seems like his dark circles have gotten worse since the last time. And then he starts to explain to everyone that, as everyone knows, today is the day of the semester performance evaluation, and the test chosen for this evaluation is the challenge corridor, which really surprises Shimmy. And when he starts trembling, saying that his plan is totally ruined, the demon tells him he's a huge liar, breaking the team's hearts. Then the couple begins to explain the rules. They must line up according to their classrooms, and once the lines are separated, he starts to speak. The objective of the test is quite simple. The challenge corridor is a sewer resembling a maze, and you go through it until you reach the final gate. It doesn't matter which path you take. Eventually, you'll reach the goal, so there's no need to worry. The team says it sounds easy, but the professor keeps saying that it would just turn into a meaningless race. So there's another thing in the challenge corridor, which are the golems scaring the boy who says this is crap. And over there, his mother tells him to watch his mouth. The couple goes on to say that they might be slow and clumsily made, but they will still be complicated for them at their current levels. Their core is exposed and their durability has been adjusted, so they should be able to take them down easily, but still, in a closed space, they will quickly catch up to them. As the students start complaining, I pause and think that these wizards really lack composure. Poto showed courage, pushing himself to the limit, but maybe it was the environment's fault. Still, there are some students with potential, and that one over there is tense, but her will is strong, and they have the eyes of someone who burns with life. This one here, never mind. He's not thinking about anything. Soon he says that's enough and that his students should be on alert. His professor said that the golems just exaggerate like guardians at the intersections. Whether you defeat or avoid them is up to you. A bracelet will also be given to each one for the evaluation, and these bracelets have defensive power similar to a force field. If the force field breaks, he will be disqualified and the golems will start ignoring them. It's a great competitive system. He says that finally, since they seem uninspired, he will make a suggestion and asks them to impress him, as he doesn't care if you're the first to arrive or defeat the most opponents. If you show something impressive, he'll give you a reward just for you, one that won't disappoint him. While thinking that's ridiculous, he wonders what kind of reward wouldn't disappoint him, and now he's starting to like this. And soon, Asta starts to remember the largest library in the eastern continent, the Lapenter, which was divided into 3 levels, upper, intermediate, and lower. Among them, the only one he is allowed to enter is the lower part. When he visited the place in search of clues about his stigma, he couldn't find the only grimoire down there. In the end, to find a clue, he needs to search the intermediate floor of the library or the upper floors, but the intermediate and upper floors are accessible only to the high nobility of the imperial family or illustrious houses. Moreover, the only other way is to obtain recommendations from at least 3 professors, and that's why he needs to earn the reward from Professor Paran. He was just trying to stay in the middle, but the people around him don't want to leave him alone. Anyway, he memorized the cross-section, so this semester evaluation is going to be very easy. Only soon Asta notices that all the students rush to the assistant professor, asking how the golem was, if it had bombs armed on it, and what its attribute was. The assistant said its attribute is based on fire, and soon another noble starts shouting, saying he needs a golem controller, while the assistant says he's trying to steal. I guess that guy in the corner realizes it's a huge mess, and it's hard to tell if they are wizards or street thugs. But, looking to the side, he sees Damon talking to another person, saying he wants vine seeds please, and that 20 of them should be enough. But that guy says he's not the professor and asks why vine seeds when his main attribute is something else. However, Damon says he doesn't have an attribute, but can still use plant-based magic, making making a plant sprout from nothing. Meanwhile, behind him, that kid watches, shocked, and finds himself disappointed with his personal weakness. Meanwhile, Asta notices that even Damien, who just keeps playing around, is making his preparations for the evaluation, but he wonders about Shine and if he will come out of his shell this time. Just then, a voice announces that he will now assign the starting points and they must check their names and go to the designated area. Soon the three look at the screen as our boy begins to see where he landed and realizes that his starting point is at 3. Then he wants to see who the others are that will go with him, and that Damien gets really excited, saying he sees Asta in there. Shinbei wishes them a good test, while our boy thinks that all the starting points are different, and the members at starting point 3, there are 6 people whose names he doesn't even know, and this reminds him of his old times, and how he used to solve problems by going on missions alone with the different unit. And he's really scared, but soon we approach him asking if he is Aster, and our boy stares at the kid who is very confident with 2 friends behind him, and I think he wonders what this is. He doesn't seem to be from class 3, and he has never seen such an arrogant guy before. It makes him want to punch him just by looking at him, and a boy steps forward and says he is Davy, and he hears that he is quite skilled. He would like to make him an offer, and Aster tells him to go ahead. The kid says that he's going to buy the bracelets from those who fail, and it'll be 30 euros each, including them. Of course, there are 3 others, and if he takes care of them, he will pay him 90 coins. The master thinks that 30 gold coins is roughly the income of a month for an average plebeian family, and his head boy says it's not a good deal, even for a bum from the black zone like him, and the young master may be taking care of him now, but how long will that last? It's about time he learns to fend for himself. Costa shows no reaction, realizing that was what he wanted, and he's actually not wrong. Other kids might resent this, calling him a coward or something like that, but these guys are just making good use of what they have. They are filthy rich, so why can't they do it? Good for them, actually. But still, he doesn't care about anything and asks the kid why 90. The kid asks if that's not enough. Then he says, fine, 35 coins per bracelet, and it'll be a total of 105 gold coins. But then Austin says, still, because doesn't the math add up? And now it seems like the young masters need to do the math again. There are 3 others beside him, and the kid says he's right, but we say that including them, it's 6. And the kid asks, so what? And our look asks why. They are omitting the price of their heads. He raised it to 35 per person, so now it's 210 gold coins, and that's the right math. After he says this, the 3 kids are shocked, not expecting him to say something so outrageous. This Davai gets really pissed, wondering what the hell is this, and if he's a loan shark, this humble peasant doesn't know his place. Where did he get this kind of confidence? Soon he asks if 35 isn't enough. Then fine, he'll raise it to 100 and not a penny more. But Austin says then the total would be 240 gold coins, and Davai wonders if he's crazy, but then he notices something. Well, this humble bastard is trying to take advantage of him to make a lot of money, and he doesn't even realize his own greed. Then again, he wanted to see how he could be so wild in front of him. He simply wasted his time on wine. Irritated, he thinks he's not a better hunting dog than the Wester to carry out the young lady's orders. But that dog is a crazy dog. He will have to find another way. So he turns and says that the negotiation is over, and he should pretend he didn't hear that. He just cuts to the question, where is he going? They can forget about him, but he will still have to pay for his bracelets. The video is going to be really pissed, asking how is that? And our guy there says he carries the load in a cart with fees for both cargo and people, and then removes the cargo. So he should at least pay the passenger's fee. He wants him to pay 120 gold coins, 40 per person. Only that was the last straw, and the kid next to him gets really mad, saying he is a miser. He has heard enough from him, but he has never seen a black bandit like him before. His friend asks if he really thinks Davai is on the same level as him, and just so you know, Davai's distant ancestor holds the title of Baron. Only Davai calls him Paco, while the kid, really mad, doesn't listen and tells him not to stop because he will teach that bastard a lesson he will never forget. Only the day is gonna get even worse, calling him by name again. When the kid looks, he sees where he is going, very mad, in a fit of rage, while he tells him not to put the moon in a position where he loses even more of the reputation he has already lost. And soon he asks Achilles if it really is 120 gold coins. So he pulls out a bag of money, while he thinks to hold on tight, because the young lady's orders matter more than these fools. And if they can close a business deal with the young lady, the merchant's rise could grow several times. Just when I think of grabbing the money, he says he really didn't realize he was in front of such such a distinguished person like him. Then he assumes the unit price has gone up, and since he is so noble, he will charge double. That leads to a total of 160 gold coins, and the kid says that now he understands. He pays 160 gold coins to Aster, but then he says that from now on he will show how miserable his life will be for 160 gold coins, and he should expect that. And soon, after everyone is ready to start the evaluation and the teacher explains the rules again, that if the shield on his bracelet breaks, he will be eliminated, and the condition for activating the force field is magic that hits directly at the body or counterattacks and mana bursts. And when the force field is destroyed, the bracelet will stay in place and the user will be forcefully teleported out of the testing location, so they shouldn't worry about getting hurt. Right behind our boy, the one who is going continues staring at him, very angry, and that is the assistant who gives the signal to the pair, and the pair confirms that they can start now. Then the magic circles are activated and everyone will be teleported to the location, while the assistant says that the trip has been completed and now he will display the internal video and begin the scoring. The pair back there is thinking that Dahlia and Damien are departing from the same point, but while he was thinking about that, a transmission started to fail and the assistant was wondering what was happening and sent to check the magic eye again. However, the pair back there says that this is enough. He also inspected some magic eyes and asked what the starting point was. The assistant said it would be starting point 3, finding scene. 4 for starting point 3, while the one going was boiling with rage, saying that he is going to destroy Aster now.